If there's a holy grail in voiceover, it might just be the client that you sign with once, and then every month or every few weeks, almost like clockwork, they drop new scripts in your inbox just magically. And this repeats for years on end. And that's actually what you can get with Automotive. And my guest today is going to tell us all about it. She's worked with Maserati, GMC, and Honda, just to name a few. Welcome to the show, Bobbi Maxwell.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's pretty nice.
I was looking through your client list on your website and I was like, is there a car brand that you haven't worked with at this point? Like,
Wow.
is there
And
like that one that you're like, I just have to get this one brand before I hang up the headphones one day?
I have not done Tesla, but yeah, I've not done Tesla. And I don't know if I'm going to do Tesla. We won't go down that road.
It can be a very sensitive subject. I understand.
Yeah.
Because I was looking through and I was like, holy man, you've literally done all of the brands at this point, which I thought was really interesting. But Cliff Zellman, obviously he's known as the king of automotive, and I've had him on the show and I've been able to quiz him and talk to him about the genre from the producer's perspective. And I mean, that guy's probably forgotten more about automotive than many voice actors will ever know and understand. But if he's the king, it seems like you might actually be the queen of automotive.
My tiara on.
Yeah. And so I'm really excited to get your take from the talent side of this automotive coin.
I love it. And I'm very fortunate. We have something in common. We come from radio. And in radio, you're going to be cutting those automotive spots.
Yep.
And Mark, of course, I'm sure you got it when you got into voiceover. It's like, don't tell anybody you're from radio.
Yep.
It'll pigeonhole you, and you're
Yep.
an announcer. And it was hard to break away from that. And but then again, there are genres like automotive and promo that it definitely helps you.
It still works. Yep.
Yeah, and I think the first spot I ever did in radio was probably a car commercial. And the last spot I did as of this moment right now was a car commercial. So that's how much work is out there, and that's how steady it is. And when you had asked for somebody to talk about automotive, I think I said I'd done 330 automotive spots last year, which seems like a lot. But to me, I thought it was kind of a slower year.
Holy 330 spots in a year, and that's a slow year. So how many automotive clients is that? Like, how many dealerships is that? Or do you know?
Oh my gosh. Well, see, the thing is the bulk of my work comes from the automotive agencies, the
Okay.
agencies that only do automotive. And just like any business, when you find somebody that you like and you know that they're going to give you exactly what you're asking for, and you're always there, always available, the delivery of the commercial, the tone, they're going to come right back to you. And
Yep.
and they have different dealerships. Some of them have 5 dealerships in one market. Some of them only have 1, but those add up. And that's where the 330 come in, because they know I'm of this one particular, my biggest automotive agency, I'm the number 1 female voice.
Okay.
So if they get a new dealership, which they do all the time, they drop some off, they'll in most cases come to me unless they want a super young female or a really luxury type breed.
So what does it look like on a practical level then to do 330 some odd spots and that be a slow year? How frequently are you voicing for some of these dealers then? Like, do you have dealers that you're doing weekly, or is it monthly? Is it quarterly? Is it a combination? What does that look like?
Every dealer that I do is typically monthly.
Okay.
But like I said, there's a lot of them that have, 10 dealerships. And
Yep.
so they'll send you those 10 usually in one day. And in automotive, it's always busiest the first week of the month. So I know from, January 1st to at least like the 10th, it's going to be busy. And I try to pick my vacations
I was just going to
according to
say,
that.
so you're always booking your vacation for the second half of the month then consistently
Yeah,
throughout the year because
but I
that's the
have
busy
done it, and
season.
we'll talk about that later too. I mean, I definitely record when I'm traveling. So yeah, so the first to the 10th, I would say, when is when the bulk of it comes in, and especially like, you know, if I really had to narrow it down, the second to the 6th, it's just going to be, I know to be in the studio. I know not to plan anything else that day, or I'll tell my, explainer clients, it may be tomorrow. But, and then, when you get multiple, automotive agencies, of course, it's going to double that amount or triple that amount. So if people are looking for automotive, that's where the work is. I mean, I used to think calling on dealerships was going to be the way to go, but almost all of them go with an agency now
It's
because
all
it's,
outsourced.
yeah,
They got
just
other
like
things to deal with, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, like any other
So
business.
when you're working for these dealers, I'm curious. I've only had one automotive client in my career, and I was with them for almost 3 years. But I was a voice for the dealership, but not the voice. So I did truck commercials for the dealership,
Okay.
and then they had I believe it was a female voice actually that was doing some of the SUVs and some of the other things, but I was exclusively doing trucks. So are you do you what does that look like for you? Do you just do certain models, or do you just do the dealership on the whole, or do you have a little bit of both, or how does that work?
I'd say my biggest brand is probably Honda,
Okay.
Toyota, VW. Yeah, those mom brands. A lot of SUVs.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean I haven't done truck things. The nice thing about that 330 commercials this past year is that a lot of those are just 15-second spots. And sometimes half of that is the general manager or, the owner or something. So it could be a 6-second read for me.
So
And
you're just tagging them basically then?
yeah, it'll be like, "Hi, we're Bill and Bob from Bill and Bob's Motors," and
Yep.
then I'll come in the middle usually, and they'll bring it out at the end.
Okay.
So those are easy.
What do these sessions look like? You said they come often at the beginning of the month. I noticed with my dealership, it was like clockwork. Like I could almost tell you the day and the time that the scripts were going to arrive every month. Are you self-directed on these? Or are you doing directed sessions on them?
I have never done a directed session in automotive.
So they're just, here's the scripts, get it back to me as quickly as humanly
Yeah.
possible.
Yep.
Kind of like political in that regard,
Yeah,
isn't it? Like
exact
kind of like a,
It's interesting you brought that up because a lot of people always told me, all my sessions in political are directed, and I was like, "What? Really?" I don't I don't do that many directed ones.
they just it's time, right? They're just, I need the talent that books is a talent that can get it to me the fastest, or
Mhm.
the talent that can turn it around the quickest, the first one to respond, the whatever. And I kind of have gotten that feeling with automotive, that it's very much like if they send you something in the morning, they're expecting it back in the afternoon, kind of a
Absolutely.
deal. Yeah.
Yeah. They're my person will send it to me. Of course, and the description on the email, hot, super hot, blazing hot. So,
Fire emojis all across
yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
okay, so you mentioned that you're working primarily through agencies. So you said you thought maybe you were going to go to the dealerships and have conversations with the dealerships, maybe talk to somebody in marketing or something like that. But
Mhm.
most of these are going through the agencies. So is that, if somebody's looking for this kind of work, that's who we're looking for then, is we're looking for the agencies that are creating the automotive commercials specifically. And
Yeah.
it's often a dedicated agency. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, it
Okay.
is. I mean, there are agencies that, there are agencies that do other things that have
Right.
automotive dealerships, obviously. But there are also those agencies, and there's probably, I don't know, across the country, I would guess 10 to 20 of them, um, and just getting connected with them. See, that's the hard part because when I was saying that if they get a new dealership in, they'll come to myself or the male number
Yep.
one voice first. But, you never know. I'm sure there are dealerships all the time that say, we want a specific sound, and it might not be me. So there's always that opportunity. I just got an email the end of December from one of the auto agencies. Had never talked to this guy, had never heard of this auto agency. And he said, hey, we got your name and heard that you do automotive. We're interested in hearing you to put you on our roster. And I was like, this is awesome. I can't believe I haven't heard them. And so first thing you do is I Google them and it's like, how did I miss this one?
Right.
And, sent him my automotive demo and my commercial demo. And he's like, this is great. Just need to run it past the team. And then the holidays came up and January, first week of January, I was like, I haven't heard from him. So you notice what I did say, the first week of January. So I hit them on their busy week and I didn't hear, and I was kind of like going, oh, they didn't like me. And sure enough, after 10 days,
Yep.
he reached out, and said, oh yeah. Sorry, it took me a while to get back to you. You're on as soon as we find, that first spot that we're looking for your voice. We'll call you.
How does it work for conflicts? Do you keep track of that? Did the agency keep track of that? Like, I'm assuming you're not voicing multiple dealers in the same town or the same city. So that's probably where the opportunity comes for some of
Yeah,
these other, if a new voice is coming in, that's where
exactly.
the opportunity comes in, because any big town has got at least one of every dealership and sometimes multiples of different brands and stuff, right?
Definitely.
So, okay.
It's funny you brought Cliff up, and when I took Cliff's X session at VO Atlanta years ago, one of the things he said was, go out and buy yourself a big map of the United States.
I love Cliff's map.
I know. And, get your little push pins. And when you book a market, especially being the voice of it, you put your push pin in there. And from there on, you just grow your map. And if an offer comes in, or if you're on pay to play and something, you can always look at that map. So, but you're right. That would be where the opportunities are. But I'm not telling you my markets.
But it doesn't matter if you're voicing for Ford in Dallas and GM in San Antonio or whatever.
No.
There's no conflict as far as brand is concerned. I'm assuming you would have to keep track of that, though, because when what we're talking about right now, this is the local regional. So that would be what, like the tier 2, tier 3, is that
Tier 3. Mm-hmm.
tier 3? So I'm assuming, though, that you have to keep track of that. So what happens when your agent sends you a national for whatever?
Unfortunately, I can't do tier 1
because you've got you're doing so many different brands. You're doing Nissan, you're doing Honda, you're doing whatever. And so Ford's not going to hire you to be the national voice of, if you're voicing for a local Nissan dealer. So, but the trade-off is that if you get enough of these dealerships, I'm guessing you're doing okay.
Yeah. I mean, you could make $15,000, $20,000 on a big Subaru campaign that's going to run for 2 years. But if you're doing, 5 Subaru dealerships a month for indefinitely, yeah, absolutely. It's I don't even question it. And I asked my manager that same question a year or two ago, and I said, I hate turning down, because that was one of my on my bucket list, was to do a national spot.
Sure.
And they just said, well, think about it. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
So
the chances of getting that one spot and what that ultimately costs you long term, you got to think about what the trade-off is.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, I mean, you mentioned that you're connecting with these agencies, and you said about this last one, like you were surprised, like, how did I not hear about this one, or how had I not found this one? So I'm assuming this is work that you're going out and getting on your own. Then this is not coming through agents and managers. This is Bobbi's putting in the time and the hustle and making the connections and building the relationships.
All of my new bookings have come either through me approaching, just like the one, or pay to play.
Okay.
My biggest one, the one that I was telling you that, I'm the number one voice on, came from pay to play. I started in voiceover full time in 2016. I think it was 2017 that the producer reached out on Voice 123, and it was just for one spot.
But it ends up becoming voice of the brand type deal, or
Yeah.
yeah.
And it just kept every year it would be more and more. And like I said, I love it. This is something I'll do. Reading like an 80-year-old lady in my studio.
When I got this automotive client that I had, they had reached out to me directly through my website, which was very random because I don't have automotive, like I have nothing automotive on my website, but they had reached out and asked me, and I was like, yeah, sure. And I auditioned, so I book it, and I was doing like I said, a couple of truck spots for them. And every month, I mean, at minimum, I was probably making about $1,500 a month. And then some months it was like 2,500 or 3,000, depending on if they threw in a couple of TV spots or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is like the greatest thing ever. And so then that's when I'm like, Cliff, tell me more about automotive. I need to learn more about automotive. And then of course, a couple of sessions with Cliff, and then it never went any further because life happened, and I didn't make it, I didn't follow through on it. But I can see where there are people that this is their primary genre, or, like this is the foundation of your work, because some of the other stuff, like commercial work from your agent, like great, but some people book one or two of those a year. Well, that's not going to pay the mortgage consistently. But if you've got some of these dealerships, it's like the gift that keeps on giving all year long. It's probably about as close to a regular paycheck as you get in voiceover, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it really is. We talked a few minutes ago about taking off the first week of the month. I have vacationed then, and I was just with my girlfriends in November in the Caribbean, and we drove to a beach, and it was in St. Thomas, beautiful beaches. And I brought, my phone with me, and then I didn't bring my equipment, obviously, because we were going to be in the middle of nowhere, but these spots started coming in. And so I went back to the Jeep in the parking lot and was recording on my phone with my friend's phone for the script. And they accepted it. And after like the fourth time I went back and forth to the parking lot, my friend said, "You're on vacation. It's like, just let it go. Tell them you'll get back in a few days." And I said, "I'm freelance. This is my work." I said, "B, if I would give that spot up, that dealership this one time, and the owner liked that voice better than mine, that's a lot of money."
Lost a client, right?
Yeah. I said, "So I'm sorry, I would love to spend more time with y'all."
I just paid for the trip while I was in the Jeep. D, I can now write off the trip because I was working while
You got it. I love that part.
I think that's something that you have to think about, though. Like I know at one point in time, you mentioned earlier about coming from radio, and that promo is a genre that can work really well for people sometimes that come from radio, and imaging would be another one that, but those genres can also be, they promo in particular, they talk about the golden handcuffs, right?
Yep.
Like you've got to be available.
Yep.
And it was one of those things where I had to make a lifestyle decision. Initially, it was when I first started thinking about pursuing it, I was a volunteer firefighter at the time, and I was like, I don't know when I'm going to have to go. Like if they send me scripts while I'm out on a fire, like it's not like I'm going to walk away from somebody's house fire and be like, sorry, I got to go record a promo.
Yeah.
And then it came a point when I had kids and I'm trying to do stuff with my kids. I'm like, it's just not the right, it's not the right genre. Like it doesn't fit for me and my lifestyle right now. But that's something that you would have to think about then with this genre is, can you be consistently available? Like it feels like if you've got a bunch of dealerships, like this might not be the right fit if you've got like a full-time day job, for example.
Yeah, exactly. The person that I was telling you about, the agency, Kevin Kilpatrick, he's the male voice and he also produces for that agency. So he knows me enough that when I wake up, my voice is really deep. And so
that's when you do the truck spots.
That's when I do the luxury spots. So he knows, and I know that if I have a spot coming up that I need to be out of bed by 7:00, because it's going to take an hour or two to get my voice warmed up.
Right.
So yeah, you have to keep all of that in mind, not just the day, but the time of day and what you sounded like on the last high energy spot for the Toyota dealership.
It sounds like total first world problems when we're talking about it, right? Like, oh, you're gonna have to be available, and you're gonna have to get out of bed in the morning, and you're gonna have your voice warmed up, and you might have to postpone your vacation until the third week of the month or whatever. But the trade-off is, if you want to build a foundation of work that just consistently shows up every month for the long term, that's the trade-off, right?
Yeah.
That's how it works. And so you have to decide if it's the right fit for you. But I can certainly see where there's an attractive case to be made for getting into the genre and pursuing it that way. So you talked about some of these have come off of pay to play, some of these have come from your hustling, going out, making the connections. You mentioned a referral was another way that somebody mentioned your name or gave your name to somebody or whatever.
Yeah.
How else? Is there other things that you've done that's landed you some of these work? Like, have you ever, gone to an industry related event or networking or anything like that? Or is it pretty much just trying to figure out who these agencies are and finding a way to get in front of them somehow?
I mean, and there are going to be jobs that aren't going to go through the agencies, and those are the ones that, I would still do the marketing, and I do. Like, I remember when I was in radio last, I did a dealership. I was living in Cincinnati at the time, and the dealership was in Northern Kentucky, and they always asked for me, and then I just left radio. And yeah, last year I was thinking, you know what? I've never reached out to them. And I did, it was a message on hold thing. And so it's not necessarily the commercial, but at least I got something out of them, it gets my VR work. So, there's different ways. Chloe DeLandis, right?
Yep.
She does automotive.
Okay.
And she's got super young voice, and her client had another dealership that wanted a more mature voice. So Chloe made the referral. So that's, how that can work. I just moved to Nashville a year ago, and as I'm learning this area, I live halfway between Nashville and Clarksville, Tennessee. So I'm looking at these dealerships going, are they with an auto agency? And unfortunately, this brings up, another thing. When you work in automotive, you got to remember you're talking TV and radio and digital type spots. So I was seeing this 5 dealership group in Clarksville wanting to reach out and say, hey, I've been doing automotive for a while now, and here's my demo. But because they are within, 45 minutes to an hour from Nashville, I already have a Nashville dealership here. So I couldn't do Clarksville.
Too close.
Yeah. So
how much has the internet screwed that up? Because it used to just be right. It was the reach of the local radio station, for example, right?
Yeah.
And now with, targeted Facebook ads and targeted YouTube, ads and all that sort of stuff, it probably has changed the landscape of that a little bit, because they can target out a little bit further, expand their potential audience out a little bit further. So you got to take that into consideration. Absolutely. Too.
Digital
so is there a rule?
A lot.
Is there like a radius? Like what do you use as a radius? Is it like, draw a circle on the map within so many kilometers, or is it, this many hours away? Or
I will usually go back to the producer and let them figure that out.
Just say, I've got one here. Is that too close or close enough? Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. So I got to talk about rates, because I think this is where some people miss the boat on automotive.
I know where you're going. Mm-hmm.
You're not charging GVAA rates, generally speaking, for automotive, but you're making up for it in bulk. And also recognizing that some of these spots are running for a week or a weekend, or a couple weeks, right? Like, we're not talking about traditional commercial campaigns and 13 weeks usage and blah 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 blah. So you have to understand those types of things. So if you're comfortable going there, as far as specifically, like, what realistically, if you're doing automotive for radio, automotive for TV, automotive for digital, like, are your rates based on what it's going to be used for, or is it radio spots are this much, TV spots are this much, digital is this much? How does that work?
That's exactly the latter part. So I know that if I do a TV spot, it's going to be $1.50.
Okay.
If I do a radio spot, it's going to be 100.
Okay.
Digital used to be 50, and they bumped it up to 100, and I see that changing down the road too, because it's just becoming more and more
The
important.
irony of it is that the digital reach is probably exponentially higher than the TV reach or the
Yeah.
radio reach, probably higher than the TV reach and the radio reach combined.
Combined, yeah.
But it's the lowest one because it's just the internet, as they always say. I'm like, oh yeah, just the internet.
Yeah.
And
And
only every person in the free world connected,
Right.
but
and most digitals are 15 seconds, so you have to look at it like that too. But you also have to remember when you're talking about those rates that think about how many times incentives change for automotive. It's this week, and they're gonna get their Hondas. They're gonna be $229 a month. And then all of a sudden a different incentive comes in from Honda corporate, and they're changing it. Guess what? Bobby gets a new spot, so Bobby gets more money, and revisions are good.
so even if you did one TV, one radio, one digital for a dealership, which I know you're doing more than that, but even if you just did one a month, we're talking like $350, $400 a month,
Yeah.
one spot, one dealer.
Yeah.
So go out and get 10 of those across the country. Like, you can do the math, right?
Yeah.
When you start to realize, wow, there's some money to be made here in this genre, but you got to know. And I think that's where people miss out because they're so conditioned to GVAA, GVAA, GVAA. And I bet you there's people that are going to be listening to this that have probably been presented with automotive opportunities and have lost it because they came back and tried to charge GVAA, local rates or whatever. Maybe it needs its own dedicated automotive section, but
that's funny. Who else was I just talking to? Danny States, who has Voice Overview. I told her, I said, you need to put an automotive category in there. I said, there's a lot of automotive work where the breakdown is, it'd be commercial and then automotive on the type of client it is. And she goes, oh, really? There's that much? And I went, yeah. So she goes, okay, I'll look into it. But yeah, I think GVAA should have, if they haven't already.
just because otherwise, people are going to potentially miss out on the opportunity. So
Yeah.
what would you say on average, based on, the number of dealerships that you've got, on average, what's a month look like for one of these dealers? Like, I said, if you do one TV, one radio, one digital, you're making X, but realistically, what are you doing? Half a dozen spots, a dozen spots per dealer per month? Is there like an average, or does it just depend?
Most of them just do one spot per type. So yeah, if they would do 3, if they would do radio,
Okay.
the 3 of them, that would be 1 a month. But like I said, if there was a change or revision or something, that might be 1 more. But when we're talking about so many dealerships, that's where it's
That's
coming
where it comes in.
Yeah.
Or if you're doing different incentives for, this is the incentives for trucks, this is the incentive for SUV or something like that. I'm guessing you're doing some more in there too.
Yeah. I had a client for like a year or 2 in Guam. And I know. Yeah, so there's automotive dealerships outside the US. So if you want to go marketing there, go for it.
There you go.
Unfortunately, they didn't pay very timely, and I had to always beg them. It's like, I've sent you my invoice. But they were the same thing. It's like every month they were there.
That brings up an interesting point, though. Are you just working in the US with automotive? Because I'm assuming there's dealerships anywhere in the world that are creating advertising just like they do in the US.
I am currently only doing American dealerships, yeah.
Have you sat down and thought about what's my capacity? Like, is that something that you think about? Like, if I get to X number of dealerships, like that's where I got to just kind of hold off based on workload and how much you have to be able to do. Like, have you ever thought about it, or is it just like, just send me all the work and I'll find a way to get it done?
Right now, I'll take a new dealership any day, any hour. I'm maturing. So, I'm looking at the future. I have grandbabies now, so I'm starting to balance, my life. It's like,
How long can I hold on to these clients before I can pass them off to my grandbabies? When are they going to be old enough to come into the booth and I can start directing them to take over? And so then you hand those,
no.
as part of the legacy is passing those clients down and
Right.
keeping the automotive in the family.
No, the scary thing is, and I've talked to the producers about, is my voice maturing. I do a lot of high energy, younger sounding spots.
Okay.
So there are some days where it's difficult to get that.
Sure.
Especially if you have a cold or something.
Yep.
So that's always in the back of my mind. But the good news is, out of all that, is that styles are changing in automotive voiceover. The male, you did it for your truck dealerships. They're still out there, especially in tier 3, but it's not like across the board. There are a lot of owners who just want it to be a mom talking, or a millennial girl. Kevin, my partner, and I had to do it was a digital ad, and we were supposed to be, Mark, in our 20s, and it was a video, it was a TV spot or a digital, like a pre-roll or something, and so we were on a couch together, and it was our voices over this Hispanic couple that were in their 20s. And Kevin goes, "You can do it. I know you can." And it sold. The owner bought it, and we were, supposed to be like, "Wonder what he's thinking." And he, she thought he was thinking about her, and he was thinking about buying this new car.
You said something that I'm curious about. What do you do when you're sick?
Yeah, it's
you just got to suck it up. Do you have like secret random home remedies that you've picked up over the years, like Vicks on your feet and sleeping with your socks on, or whatever the crazy things are that people are doing? Because I mean, if the spots are coming at the same time every month, and they're coming at every month, I'm guessing there's not a lot of room for forgiveness in there. Like, oh, you know what? I got a really bad head cold this week, so if we could hold off until next week, like it's not really an option.
So I avoid those snotty grandbabies the week before, because you're going to get sick from them.
Oh my gosh, I got 4 kids in school right now. It's like, forget it. From
You've
October to March, I'm just like, whatever. I can't do anything.
It's terrible, but you love them so much.
It's right. They're cute, so I still keep them. But man, they cost me some work sometimes.
Yeah, it's funny. I told you I moved to Tennessee, and I live out in the middle of nowhere now. And I don't see people as much as I did. So
That's the secret.
I've not been sick.
That's the secret. I was going to say, you probably moved to get away from the cold, crappy Ohio winters. And then did Tennessee get the snow that so much of the South got here this last week?
Yeah.
Thanks so much for that.
I know. I have to share this story with you. When we did choose this little town, I was like, oh, this is going to be so nice. All you hear are birds outside, and, occasionally you'll hear somebody run their mower the next lot up. And we moved in on a Friday, and Saturday I heard a helicopter, and then I heard another helicopter.
Oh, crap.
I live 25 minutes from Fort Campbell in Kentucky. So guess what? Helicopters all the time.
I was waiting for you to tell me that you like lived in a, like there's a celebrity survey of country music singers, like, 10 minutes away, and they're all flying in and out from their concerts and their private choppers and
that's
and
at the other end
whatever,
of Nashville. That's down in Franklin.
Oh man. So yeah, no matter where you go, you're still going to have to deal with that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah. I had to buy a vocal booth within a couple of days because I knew that a closet wasn't going to work.
That's an interesting call to George the Tech. Can you build me a filter that will eliminate and then rhyme off whatever model of helicopter it is that's flying in and out all day? Yeah. is there a filter? Like, can we record that voice print and do the noise reduction magic in Adobe for that? Or
I know, right?
man, yeah, that would be tough. It's kind of the realtor didn't mention that there was going to be helicopters flying in and out
Nobody
all day.
mentioned that. She just wanted her 6% or whatever.
That's right. So you mentioned that you've seen a little bit of a change in automotive. Yeah. What are we paying attention to?
It's funny. I'm actually recording my new automotive demo tomorrow.
Okay.
Kevin produces automotive demos because he knows as much as anybody.
Yep.
And I would say my last demo was your typical, young, energetic, very, I don't want to say forced, but you know what I mean, that very perky. And then a mom spot. But now I need to do a spot that's, that are like an e-car. Luxury used to be that,
Yeah.
really sexy, sultry. And luxury is not like that anymore. It's so conversational and so, just this is me telling you this. So that's changed. What's the other one that I'm doing? I'm actually doing a Ford truck cut in my new demo, and I'm going to be kind of gruff. It's going to work great because I'm just thinking of all the women in my little town that drive the Ford trucks, and I'm just going to channel them and go with that kind of.
Is that something that you've seen shift over the years? Because you've been doing this for a while now. I think sometimes we think of automotive as more of a male-dominated genre. Obviously, you're doing just fine based on the number of spots that you're telling me that you're doing. But is that something that you've seen shift over the years? Is more opportunities or dealers being more open to using females?
I would compare it to the promo world right now, the network promo world. Yes, there are some changes, and you're going to hear it, especially trailers. They're trying women out. Are they, ready to make it 50-50? No way.
Right.
But yeah, I have done truck spots, but I don't have a regular truck spot. It's usually one of those dealerships who also have, or one of those owners who have a truck that don't want to use their high energy guy for that month.
Sure.
For whatever reason.
Okay. So
I would like to bring something up for people who want to get into automotive. Versatility in your demo is so important, because to get 6 or 7 dealerships, you can't have the same sound, or you're going to hear Bobbi being perky all over radio or TV in that market, and they don't want that. They want their brand, and they want that voice of the brand to sound different than the voice of this brand. So when you're putting your demo together or just marketing and you don't have an automotive demo, sending them different tones of your voice and styles of your voice is always going to help you. And that's one thing that I do credit to myself, is that I know that I can do the young sound. I know that I can be a mom. I know that I can be, the kind of raspy truck driver. And that's all important if you want to build these dealerships.
You mentioned about the different brands and different sounds. So is there a consistency? If you're doing Kia, there's a Kia sound from this dealer to that dealer to no matter what region you're in. So part of your homework, I guess, then if you're gonna do this genre, is figuring out what is the Kia sound, what is the Honda sound, what is the Ford sound, or whatever, because that is part of the brand identity. So they're looking for something. So if you're I'm guessing then, if you've nailed the Honda sound, it's going to be easier for you to get Honda dealerships across multiple regions or whatever. Yeah. Okay. So that's
I have a hard time doing the Subaru voice, because Subaru is, they're into nature, and they're, and that's just, I don't know, that sound. I can't even explain what the sound is, but I've only had like one Subaru spot. It's just not my make.
So without giving away all your secrets, or maybe giving away all your secrets, you said from the very beginning that part of what has kept you busy is you've just become a top talent for some of these agencies. They know you, and so they come back to you. So when a new dealer comes in, you're the first person that they push out. What are some of the things that you have done that have made you that trustworthy, reliable, that go-to? Like, what are some of the things that another voice actor who's trying to make a place for themselves here, what do they need to do? What are those tips or tricks that you've got?
Well, we covered some of them: being available, very, very quick turnaround, um, being consistent with your style. Sometimes a dealership will send a spot on spec. A lot of people don't want to do things for free. If there's a chance that this is a new dealership and they want me to cut a spec spot for 15 or 30 seconds, you better believe I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, just I've always said, super serve your client if you want them to stick around. Make it easier for them to say, oh, I know Bobbi can do this. And she can probably do it in one take.
You said be available. Let's clarify that, because promo, sometimes being available is like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like affiliate can be 24/7, right? Breaking news happens and you gotta, what is available? Are we talking like 9 to 5 available still? Or are we talking, no, they might call you on a Saturday afternoon and be like, hey, we need this, the incentives have changed or whatever?
The agencies will pretty much stay work business hours. That could be as early as, 8 or 9 a.m. up until 6 p.m., just depending on which time zone you're in, of course.
Yep.
There are some clients that I've done work for that are just like small mom and pop agents, who will come to me at night and or on the weekend, and I'll do it. I'll do it. And I take my equipment every time I travel, every single time.
What is the turnaround expectation? Is it, I need it today? Is it, I need it in 2 hours?
Yeah, if it's hot, within the hour,
Okay.
if not less. I mean, like, I don't care what you're working on, that explainer's
Stop.
gonna have to wait. Yeah.
I need you to do this now. Yeah.
Yeah. And you get those, especially when the big automotive spots run. They're big in like March Madness.
Yep.
They're big for Black Friday sales, and then clearance at the end of the
end
year.
of the model year. And,
yeah. So you know when it's coming. Or 4th of July is a huge one.
Yep.
July for me is the slowest month for voiceover and everything else, but one of the biggest in automotive.
So when the rest of the world is taking vacation, the automotive guys not taking vacation.
Unless it's like right at July 4th, because they already have their spot done. Something we didn't talk about was AI. And
yeah, you had to go there, Bobbi.
I know, but it's so relevant, So one of the agencies brought it up, not to me, but through the producer, and said, if we have her on all these spots, we really need it, and she's unavailable. Can't we just use this AI program that someone told us about? And there had to be a big talk about it. And they were very cool about it. The agency was. They said, we're like you. We want to give you work. We don't want AI to take over this. So they said, we will give you the opportunity to be available for that last minute thing. If you're not, we have the right to throw it in the AI system.
I was going to say, have you ever thought about making AI Bobbies so that in the event of, but then you have control over it, right?
Yeah.
So look, it's one thing to be on vacation. It's another thing if there's, I don't know, some sort of emergency or natural disaster or whatever. Like sometimes life just happens and you can't be there.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about having that voice model where you could say, okay, I can't do it, but I'm going to get it to you, but then you have the full control so
Yeah,
that you know that it's not getting used for anything that you don't want it to get used for?
absolutely. We just talked about this a month or two ago and saying, yeah, you can use my AI, but you're going to have to pay me for it.
Yeah,
Uh,
they still would, yeah, of course.
and it'll
Maybe
be
that's how
discussed
you
more.
preserve, maybe you go back and train a model based on, AI or based on Bobby spots from, 10 years ago or whatever.
Yes. And then I don't have to worry about my voice
That's right.
changing.
And then that's how you get to preserve that part of it. It's something, we kind of half joke about it, but it's something that, I mean, I've thought about.
Yeah.
Is there a way, like if it's going to come into the industry, it's already here.
Yeah.
If it's going to get used in some way, how do I be the guy that's monetizing it?
Right.
Right? Like that's kind of how I'm thinking of it. If it's going to get used, I want to be the one that's getting paid.
Hmm.
So I don't want to give my voice to somebody else so that they can make a model, so that they can use the model, so that they can get paid. I want to make the model so that they come to me, I create the spot, and then I'm getting paid or whatever. And it's something that I have thought about. So
So you don't have an AI bank?
I don't. Yeah,
Voice bank?
I did one, like many voice actors. I did one a couple of years ago with a certain company, and booked one job off of it, and then that company got sold, and
Oh, wow.
everything changed, and so AI Marc is sitting in a server room somewhere. I guess I don't know.
Hey, yeah, Mark.
But I have thought about that. So what about on the other side of it? Have you seen any dealers talking about, we're just going to start using AI voices because it's instantaneous and we can just do it now and we don't have to deal with talent or anything like that? Is that something that you've seen at all in any from, or heard any rumors of?
Well, it's all a matter of trust, right?
Yep.
The fact that it's already come up and they told us about it, it's definitely out there and they're thinking about it more and more. But they played for us what they did and it sounded like
It's
crap.
not good yet. I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that at this point, and maybe a year from now, it's going to be a different story, but at this point, it really isn't plug and play.
Right.
You've still got to go through and tweak it. You've got to pitch it. You've got to modulate it. You've got to get it to correct pronunciations and all of that sort of stuff. It's not like you can just take a script, drop it in, have a perfectly generated thing and be on your way 10 seconds later. And I think I've seen that with some of the e-learning companies that I've worked with, where they thought that's what it was going to be. And then they realized, oh crap, like this takes us 10 times longer to use this stupid AI. And I'm like, exactly. So just let me do it.
And especially with automotive, we both know that usually there's way too much copy
Yep.
in automotive for a 30-second spot. So
Yep.
I don't know much about AI, but I would be guessing that the more words in there and the faster you're talking, the worse it would sound.
I think that's probably fair at this point.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that it hasn't become an issue yet. That's actually good to hear. And I'm glad that, this particular agency had the conversation with you. And once, you got to explain your side of it, that they understood and
Yeah.
you've both decided that this is not the way. I mean, when you think about it from the creative perspective, we feel like it's going to be this existential crisis across the board. So it's not just us that's getting affected by it, right? Like the producers, the writers, like all of these people at some point could become the next victim of,
Sure.
as AI gets smarter and smarter and smarter. So it's in our best interest to band together and continue to work on this as humans, using the tools where we can use them to assist us in productivity or efficiency or whatever. But I'm glad that it's still being voiced by humans up to this point.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell me about the podcast.
It's going on, oh gosh, is this our 5th year, 6th year? We changed our name, we rebranded. It's now the Making Waves, WAVS, voiceover podcast. And we're now every single week sponsored and just having fun. Kevin and I are two former radio people who kind of treat it as our own morning show. And, bringing our
But I
guests
don't have
in.
to get up at 3:00 in the morning to do it. That's the best kind of morning radio.
I know. It really is. It's understandable why podcasts have just exploded. I mean, it's fun. Coming up.
So much more convenient.
Yeah.
And I can do it so much without the sleep deprivation that I suffered through when I was doing morning radio.
But as we talked before, it's not coming up with topics.
It is still a challenge. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that explains it, because when I was doing some research for this, I saw the Making Waves and I was like, is she doing a separate one, or what's going? I was like, no, there's no way she'd be crazy enough to be doing two at the same time.
You know why we changed? Do you know Maurice Tobias?
I know the name. Yep, I know Maurice.
Incredible coach, one of the longest tenured coaches out there, voiceover coaches. We had her on, and she said, it used to be called the middle class VO podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, what does that even mean? She's very blunt. She goes, to me, I don't even know what you're about. It says VO in there, but what's the middle class? And she goes, you really should think about changing that. And like within a few weeks, we were coming up with something. And
yeah, it always made sense to me. I always got that it's like, or I mean, maybe I should find out. My interpretation was that it was like it's like the everyday VOpreneur, right? Like, this is not there's different worlds in voiceover.
Exactly.
Right? There's different worlds in voiceover, and the Hollywood world of voiceover, nothing wrong with the Hollywood world of voiceover, but it's not the reality for most of us.
Yeah.
And so that was where I was like, I want to talk to just the people who are in the trenches, who are just doing it every day. And this is how they make the living. And, they're not an A-list celebrity with an A-list agent and all that sort of stuff. But it's just like, guys like me who are just like, oh, let's see if I can make this voiceover thing work and make some money and take care of my family. And,
you're absolute. That's just exactly what it was about.
The working stiff VO or whatever. I mean, that's what I always assumed that was what you were going for. And I totally understood, because I was like, that's those are the people I want to talk to too. I want to get the real stories, right? I want to talk to somebody who's making money every day doing automotive, but not just, sitting back while agents hand her all of her scripts or whatever. Like, I want to talk to what you and find out what you're doing, because then that's something that maybe I could take and I could do on my own, because I don't have the agents that are sitting there handing all the scripts to me or whatever. And so that's what I love about it, is figuring out, just hearing the real stories of the people who are just in the trenches every day, doing it, hustling and doing it. So
but you got to remember, Maurice is from that Hollywood world. Yep. So she was going like, well, I don't quite know what it is.
I don't understand.
But I'm so glad we did, because it's a nice catchy name too. As soon as it
reboots, right?
Right.
Sometimes you just got to reboot. I'm almost 300 episodes in at this point. I'm like, which is probably about 295 more episodes than I thought that I would last. So,
so when are you handing it over to your girls?
Oh man, I remember joking with Bridget Reel. I think it was last year, maybe at VO Atlanta. I was like, Bridget, I got to tell you something. She's like, what? I said, I had this dream. It was really strange. I said, but I found out that I was going to die, and I left you the VOpreneur brand in my will. And she just starts laughing and is like, do you want it? Because I could actually write it in there for.
That's funny.
It was the most random thing. But yeah, I was like, I left you the brand in my will, so I guess you get everything. So
nice, Bridget.
Well done, Bridget. Yeah. Didn't even leave it to my kids, my poor kids. I'll have to make sure that if I do that I write a royalty in there for them or something like that.
Do your girls do voiceover?
They don't.
Okay. They have no interest.
Kaylee, I wouldn't be surprised at some point. I mean, anybody that watched the 12 voiceover gifts of Christmas live stream, I mean, Kaylee just sat on my lap and took over the microphone at multiple points throughout the show. So I wouldn't be surprised if she had an interest in doing it one day. But I got my wife to do a few things here and there once upon a time. But no, there's just not really interest there.
Oh, by the way, this year's 12 gifts of I listened to you with a shopping cart and my phone down in my purse so I could turn it up a little bit louder. And I'm going through, do you have Dollar Trees up there?
Yep. Yep.
I was in a Dollar Tree. I'm going around the aisles and here's Marc. I kept peering in my purse every once in a while. I didn't win again.
Am I going to win something this year? Is this going to be the year that I finally win something? This was the best chance. I mean, the odds were pretty good this year. I say they were like 1 in 14 or 1 in 16 or something like that.
That's why I was like, this is the year. I am definitely going to be watching in the Dollar Tree.
Oh, man, that's funny. I love that. I love that it's become such a thing, something that people get so excited about, and
Oh, we just love
we
it
have
because you do it. Thank you.
we have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
All right, well, tell us where to find the podcast. What's the website, and how do we look it up so people can check out your show as well? And if there's any other things, anything else, website or anything you want to give for the show notes that people can look up, connect with you. If anybody's got a question about anything that we've talked about today, where do we go?
My website is Bobbi with an I, BobbiMaxwell.com. And the podcast is the Making Waves, WAVS voiceover podcast. You can find us in all the typical places: Podbean, Apple, YouTube, iHeart,
Wherever fine podcasts are given away for free. That's what I always say.
Yes.
All right, Bobbi. Well, thank you so much. I when Cliff came on the show, I said I felt like you just gave me a free masterclass in automotive. I feel like you literally just did the same thing, but from the totally opposite side of the coin. And I think this is going to be really helpful to a lot of people. You've shared a lot of amazing information here today, so I'm grateful. So thank you for doing that.
So I can keep my tiara then?
That's right. You are the queen. You heard it here. Queen of automotive, Bobbi Maxwell.
Yay! Thanks, Marc. It's been a pleasure being here.